The chain-link fence glinted under the late afternoon sun, slicing through the creek like a blade through my heart. It wasn't just a fence, it was a declaration of war. My creek, the one I'd waded in as a kid, where I'd tossed pebbles with my dad, where the water babbled secrets only I could hear, was now choked by Karen's spite. The HOA president had decided, without so much as a word to me, that my land was hers to control. I stood there, boots sinking into the muddy bank, the air thick with the scent of damp earth and betrayal, my chest tight with a fury I hadn't felt since I was a teenager getting grounded for sneaking out. Karen's smug face flashed in my mind, her perfectly manicured nails tapping on her clipboard at every HOA meeting, her voice like a dentist's drill, whining about community standards. This wasn't about standards. This was personal. I'd bought this little slice of heaven, a ramshackle cabin on 5 acres in rural Georgia 3 years ago. After Mom passed, it was my escape from Atlanta's concrete jungle, from cubicles and traffic and the grind that made my soul feel like it was suffocating. The creek was the heart of it all, a winding ribbon of silver that carried my grief away. Day by day, I'd sit on the bank, the water's gentle gurgle drowning out the world, the moss soft under my palms, the air tasting of pine and freedom. But Karen, she didn't see a creek. She saw a liability, a drainage issue, a chance to flex her power. Last week, I'd come home from a double shift at the hospital to find her workers hammering posts into my creek bed, splitting my property in half. It's for the neighborhood's aesthetic, she'd said when I confronted her. Her lips pursed like she'd just sucked a lemon. You'll thank me later, Emma. Thank her. I wanted to scream. I wanted to tear that fence down with my bare hands. Instead, I took a breath, the kind that burns your lungs, and marched back to my cabin. My hands shook as I dialed my lawyer, Sarah, whose voice was a steady anchor in the storm of my rage. Emma, calm down, she said, her tone clipped but kind. Send me the property deed. We'll figure this out. I rummaged through Mom's old cedar chest, the one that smelled like her lavender perfume, and found the yellowed deed, its edges curling like ancient parchment. It was clear as day. The creek was mine, every inch of it, from the oak grove to the bend where the water pooled deep enough to swim. Sarah's voice crackled through the phone an hour later. This is airtight, Emma. Karen's got no leg to stand on. But we need to play this smart. Smart wasn't my strong suit when I was this angry. I paced the cabin's creaky floorboards, the wood groaning under my steps, the ticking of Mom's old clock on the mantel driving me up the wall. I wanted to storm Karen's McMansion, bang on her door, and shove the deed in her face. But Sarah's warning echoed. She's got the HOA board eating out of her hand. We need evidence, not a scene. So I waited, my stomach churning, my nights haunted by the sound of that creak being strangled by her fence. Every morning, I'd walk the bank, the water lapping at my boots, the air heavy with the metallic tang of the fence posts. Felt like losing Mom all over again. Then came the twist I didn't see coming. His name was Tom, a wiry old man with a face like weathered leather, who showed up at my door one evening, his truck rattling like it was held together by duct tape. Heard about your creek trouble, he said, tipping his faded Braves cap. Used to fish that creek with your granddaddy back in the day. His voice was gravelly, warm, like he'd smoked one too many cigars. He wasn't part of the HOA, lived just outside its jurisdiction, in a trailer tucked in the pines. Karen tried to pull the same stunt on me 10 years ago, he said, leaning against my porch railing, the wood creaking under his weight. Tried to claim my back acre for a community garden. I got something you might want. Tom handed me a folder, its edges dog-eared, stuffed with old maps and county records. My hands trembled as I opened it, the paper crinkling, the faint smell of dust rising. The maps were hand-drawn, dated 1963, showing the creek's path through my land clear as crystal. No HOA jurisdiction anywhere near it. Your granddaddy helped me survey this, Tom said, his eyes crinkling with a sadness I couldn't place. He loved that creek. Said it was his church. My throat tightened, a lump forming as I thought of Dad telling me the same thing. His boots splashing as we hunted for crawdads. Tom's voice dropped. Karen's been buying up board members with promises new playgrounds. Better roads. She's got no claim. But she's got power. You gotta hit her where it hurts. That night, I sat at my kitchen table. The maps spread out under the dim glow of a single bulb. The hum of cicadas outside like a heartbeat. Sarah was thrilled when I sent her scans. This is gold. Emma, she said. We're taking this to court. But court wasn't enough for me anymore. I wanted Karen to feel it. To know she couldn't just steamroll me. So I started digging metaphorically at first. Then literally. I walked the creek at dawn, the mist curling off the water like ghosts, and noticed something odd. The fence posts weren't just on my land, they were sinking into the creek bed, causing the water to pool unnaturally. The bank was eroding, the roots of my favorite oak exposed like bones. Karen's aesthetic was destroying the very thing she claimed to protect. I snapped photos, my phone's shutter clicking in the quiet morning, the air sharp with the scent of wet clay. I posted them on the neighborhood's X page, tagging Karen and the HOA, my fingers flying over the keyboard. This is what community standards look like. Destroying my creek for a fence that's not even legal. The post blew up. Neighbors I'd never met chimed in, sharing their own Karen horror stories. She'd find one guy for his mailbox being too rustic. Another got a cease and desist for planting wildflowers. The tide was turning, and I could almost hear Karen's perfect world cracking. The court date came faster than I expected. The courtroom smelled of polished wood and stale coffee, the air conditioning humming like a distant lawnmower. Karen sat across from me, her blonde bob immaculate, her eyes narrowing every time I glanced her way. Sarah was a bulldog, presenting the deed, Tom's maps, and my photos of the eroding creek bank. The judge, a stern woman with gray streaks in her hair, leaned forward, her glasses glinting. Ms. Thompson, she said to Karen, her voice like a gavel. Can you explain why you authorized construction on land you don't own? Karen stammered, her face flushing, her usual composure unraveling like a cheap sweater. It was for the community, she said, but the words sounded hollow, desperate. Then came the moment I'd been waiting for. Sarah called Tom to the stand. He shuffled up, his boots scuffing the floor, and told the story of my granddaddy, the creek, and the land's history. His voice broke when he mentioned my dad, how they'd fished together, how the creek was more than water, it was memory, family, home. I bit my lip, tears stinging, the courtroom blurring. The judge's face softened, just for a second, and I knew we'd won. The ruling came down like thunder. The fence was to be removed. Karen was to pay for the creek's restoration, and the HOA was ordered to revise its bylaws to prevent future overreach. Outside the courthouse, the air was thick with summer heat, the cicadas screaming in triumph. Karen stormed past, her heels clicking like gunfire, but I caught her eye. For once, she looked small, her shoulders hunched, her power stripped away. I wanted to gloat, to rub it in, but Tom's words echoed, hit her where it hurts. Her defeat was enough. I drove back to my cabin, the windows down, the scent of pine and creek water flooding my senses. The fence was gone by the next week, the creek flowing free again, this babble louder, clearer, like it was singing. I sat by the water that evening, my bare feet dangling in the current, the coolness soothing my tired soul. The oak's roots were still exposed, but they'd heal, just like I would. Karen's reign was over, her name a cautionary tale whispered at HOA meetings. The creek wasn't just mine, Anna Marie, it was ours, the community's, a reminder that some things are worth fighting for. I closed my eyes, the water's song wrapping around me, And for the first time in months, I breathed easy. Justice wasn't just a word. It was the sound of my creek. Free at last.